The first scream didn't sound like words. It burst out of the darkness like an animal in pain, sharp and ugly, cutting through the soft evening noises of the Enugu compound. Children stopped kicking their plastic football. A pot of jollof almost slipped from a neighbor's hand. Radios dropped low. Generators hummed in the background, but even they felt small next to that voice. You've ruined my life long enough, the man roared from the third-floor balcony. Today you will confess what you are. Heads turned up as one. There, on the cracked cement below, people saw the shadow of a man dragging his wife toward the low rail of the balcony. The light from the corridor bulb threw long shapes against the wall. His hand was tight around her arm. Her night wrapper was half loose, one side slipping off her shoulder. Bare feet scraped the tiled floor. "Please, Caleb, stop," she begged, her voice shaking, her free hand holding onto his wrist. "Think of the children, please. I am your wife, not your enemy." "Don't call my name with that mouth," he shouted, spit flying. "You brought bad luck into my house from the day I married you. My business is dying, everything I touch fails, and you still pretend you're innocent. That's what you are, a witch in church clothes." Downstairs, a little boy of 7 clutched the iron rail of the staircase, eyes wide. "Mom!" he whispered, but the word got lost in the thick evening air. His name was Daniel, and he had never heard his father sound this wild before. His small chest rose and fell too fast, like a bird trapped in a cage. On the balcony, the woman's back hit the rail with a dull thud. She gasped, gripping the cold metal behind her. Her name was Rachel. She was 32, with tired eyes and a face that used to smile easily. Right now, those eyes were filled with a fear she had never known. The compound lights turned her skin a soft bronze, sweat shining on her forehead. Her feet kept searching for steady ground, but the narrow balcony felt smaller than it had that morning. "Caleb, listen," she whispered, tears slipping down. "I am not what they told you. I have stood with you. I cooked for you when you had nothing. I prayed with you when the losses came. Please look at me, not at their lies, please." He didn't hear her, or maybe he refused to. His mind was far away, tangled in words someone else had planted. His jaw was tight. His eyes, usually calm and calculating like a businessman, were wild, glassy, almost empty. The soft Enugu breeze lifted the edge of his shirt, flapping it like a warning flag. Neighbors gathered below, some with hands on their heads, some whispering prayers under their breath. "Jesus, take control," an older woman murmured, her wrapper tied high on her chest. "Somebody should hold him now, before he does what he cannot take back." But no one moved. Fear held them there, fear of getting involved, fear of being the one he turned on next, fear of becoming the topic in tomorrow's gossip. Up above, Caleb's voice dropped low, dark and cold. "If I leave you in this house one more day, I will die. You will not kill me. You will not kill my destiny. If your feet touch this ground again after tonight, may everything I ever lost never come back." Rachel shook her head slowly, disbelief mixing with terror. This was the man she'd married 10 years ago. The man who once saved her from a speeding geek on Zick Avenue, who used to bring her fried yam from the corner shop when they had nothing else to eat. The same man who used to lay his head on her lap and talk about his dreams. Now his hand was on her throat, fingers digging in just enough to make her breath shallow. "Please," she tried again, voice barely there, "don't do this. God is watching." "Let him watch," Caleb hissed. "Let everyone watch." He lifted one leg, pressing his knee into her stomach, pushing her back inch by inch toward the thin edge where tile ended and air began. Her heels slipped. Her body jerked. Gasps rose from the people below like a single breath. For a split second, time stretched. Rachel's fingers clamped onto the rail, her knuckles turned white. The sky above Enugu was already slipping into night, a deep purple spread with faint stars. Somewhere, a generator coughed and died, and part of the compound went dark. Her eyes met her son's down below. Little Daniel's lips moved soundlessly. Tears ran down his cheeks. In that moment, the world went quiet inside her. No more insults, no more fear, just that small boy's face, the child she brought into this world, looking up at her like he was losing everything. And then Caleb's foot shifted. The thin metal rail shook under her weight, her balance slipped, her body tilted backward. The last thing she felt was the cold breath of night on her back as the world fell out from under her feet. Before we continue, take a deep breath. If this opening already has your heart racing, don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who needs a reminder that violence is never love, and subscribe to this channel to support our growth. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments. Let's see how far Stories That Heal is reaching across the world. Now let's go back to where this all began. Long before Rachel's body swung over that balcony rail, the compound on Hilltop Street in Enugu had been a place of laughter and loud radios. Children chased each other through the narrow corridor, knocking on doors and shouting apologies they didn't mean. Women argued softly over who first started selling tomatoes in front of the gate. Men sat on plastic chairs, talking about football and politics, scratching their lottery tickets with worn-out coins. In the middle flat on the second floor lived Caleb and Rachel with their son, Daniel. Their door was the one everybody knew, the one that smelled like fresh stew on Sundays and jollof rice on late evenings. The one where you could knock if you needed small onions, a little oil, or someone to watch your child for 30 minutes. Back then, if you had walked into their living room, you would have seen a simple space but a warm one. The TV was small and old but always wiped clean. The brown couch had one spring broken, but Rachel covered it with a bright Ankara cloth to make it look new. A framed photo on the wall showed a younger Caleb and Rachel standing in front of an old yellow bus, both grinning like the future belonged only to them. Caleb had not always been a man people feared. When he first moved into the compound, he was the one who helped older tenants carry bags up the stairs. He worked in town as a sales agent for building materials and later started his own small supply business. He smiled easily, joked loudly, and often whistled as he climbed the steps. "Good afternoon, sir," the children would chorus. "Afternoon, my future millionaires," he would reply, tapping their heads gently. "Read your books well, so you won't be climbing stairs like me forever." It was Caleb who painted the faded corridor wall one December without asking the landlord for money. It was Caleb who once chased a thief halfway down the street when someone's phone was snatched at the gate. It was Caleb who bought a small cake when Daniel turned 5, even though money was tight, because a child should know he is celebrated. Beside him, always moving quietly but firmly, was Rachel. She was the kind of woman people trusted without thinking about it, not because she had plenty, but because she had a soft way of speaking that made even bad news sound less heavy. She sewed clothes for people in the compound, simple dresses, school uniforms, sometimes church outfits. Her sewing machine sat by the living room window, facing the balcony, where she could look out and call Daniel inside when the sun got too hot. She woke at 4:30 a.m. every day, first to pray, then to boil water, prepare breakfast, pack Caleb's food in a plastic bowl, and iron the one good shirt he liked to wear for big meetings. She did not complain, at least not out loud. In her mind, she sometimes wished things would be easier. But she also remembered the days when they rented a single room on the ground floor and still had to borrow salt. So to her, this small flat on the second floor felt like progress. The first crack in their peace did not come like thunder. It came quietly, like a small stone that hits your window and doesn't break it but leaves a faint line. It started with business. Caleb's supply company had been growing. He had 2 boys who helped him move bags of cement and iron rods. He was planning to rent a small office space near New Market. He often stayed late, returning with dust on his shoes and tiredness on his face, but with a proud smile. Then last rainy season, things changed. A big contract he had counted on fell through. The contractor claimed the iron rods arrived late. Caleb insisted the delay was from the truck company, not him. There were heated calls, angry texts, promises, and finally silence. Payment never came. Worse, rumors started going around that Caleb's company was not reliable. In their line of work, that kind of talk could kill you faster than sickness. Caleb came home that evening quiet, too quiet. He dropped his bag by the door, sat on the couch, and stared at the wall. "Welcome," Rachel said softly, wiping her hands on a kitchen towel. "Food is almost ready. How did it go?" He didn't answer. His jaw moved like he was chewing anger. "Caleb," she tried again, stepping closer. "Did they pay? What happened?" He turned his head slowly, looking at her as if she were far away. "They said I delayed," he said at last, voice flat. "Said my company is careless, said they will never work with me again." Rachel's heart dropped. She knew how long he'd chased that deal. How many nights he'd slept late, writing figures on pieces of paper, muttering about cement prices and transport. "Maybe it will still work out," she said gently. "Sometimes people talk harsh at first. Tomorrow you can go back, explain. God can still." "God?" he cut in sharply, laughing without humor. "Yes, God, the same God we've been praying to, right? The same God that watched my truck break down on the way and did nothing. The same God that let me lose everything." She stayed quiet, The light from the bare bulb made harsh lines on his face. "Did you pray for me, Rachel?" he asked suddenly, turning fully toward her. "Yes," she said, "every day." His eyes narrowed. "Are you sure?" "Yes," she replied, confused. "Why would I lie about that?" He looked away, jaw tightening again. "Forget it," he muttered, rising from the chair. "I need to think." That night, as rain beat gently on the zinc roof, Rachel lay awake, listening to the slow, restless turning of her husband beside her. She reached out once, wanting to place her hand on his shoulder, but something held her back. There was a distance between them she couldn't explain, like a door she had not seen before suddenly closing quietly. The next crack came in the form of a message on Caleb's phone. Her name was Tasha. Rachel first heard that name weeks later, though the woman herself had already been circling their lives like a shadow. Caleb started coming home later. At first he said he was chasing new clients, then that he was meeting someone who can help the business. Whenever his phone rang and he saw a certain number, his tone changed. He walked out to the balcony to pick the call, voice suddenly lighter, almost playful. One evening, while folding clothes in the bedroom, Rachel heard him downstairs in the courtyard, laughing in a way she hadn't heard in months. She peeped through the curtain. Caleb was leaning against a parked car, talking to a woman leaning on the driver's door. Even from up there, Rachel could see the woman was younger, maybe late 20s. She wore tight jeans and a fitted top that showed her slim waist. Her hair was in a sleek wig that fell to her shoulders. She moved her hands as she talked, confident, like someone who knew people were watching and liked it. Caleb threw his head back at something she said, laughing loudly. He touched her arm just for a moment. But it was enough to make Rachel's stomach twist. "Who is that, Mommy?" Daniel asked, appearing at her side. "Someone from Daddy's work," Rachel said softly, lips pressed together. "Go inside and finish your homework." Later that night, when Caleb finally came upstairs, Rachel asked casually, "You had a visitor today?" "Visitor?" he repeated, opening the pot on the stove and sniffing the soup. "Ah, you mean Tasha? She's just helping me with some things." "What kind of things?" "Business," he said quickly. "She knows people, she's connected, she can help me get new contracts, that's all." Rachel nodded slowly. "Okay, I just wanted to know." He slammed the pot lid a little harder than necessary. "You don't trust me." "I didn't say that," she replied quietly. "I only asked." "That's how it starts," he shot back, turning to face her. "Suspicion, accusations, maybe that's why things are not going well, maybe you don't really believe in me after all." The words stung more than they should have. Rachel turned away, blinking. She knew from experience that arguing when he was in this mood was like pouring petrol on fire. So she kept silent, stirring the pot while her heart stirred with questions she had no answers for. It was around that time the whispers began. One afternoon, Rachel went downstairs to buy pepper from the woman by the gate. As she counted her money, she heard two other women talking in low voices just behind her. They didn't realize she could hear, or maybe they did and didn't care. "I heard his business is crashing," one said. "They said one big contract failed because of him." The other replied, "This life you never know who is who." "But you know these things," the first continued, lowering her voice even more. "Sometimes it's not ordinary, sometimes the person sleeping on your bed is the one pulling you down." Rachel's hand froze over her purse, her ears rang. "You mean his wife?" the other woman asked, disbelief mixed with curiosity. "I'm not saying anything, the first said quickly. "But some men marry the wrong woman and everything starts dying. Business, health, even peace. They say she looks like a church woman, but you can't trust faces." Rachel swallowed hard. The pepper in the woman's tray swam before her eyes. She paid and walked away slowly, pretending she hadn't heard, but every word followed her up the stairs like smoke. That evening, when Caleb came home earlier than usual, his face was hard. He didn't drop his bag the way he usually did. He didn't kiss Daniel's head or ask about his day. He walked straight into the bedroom and shut the door. Rachel waited a few minutes, then followed. He was sitting on the edge of the bed, elbows on his knees, phone in his hand. On the screen, she saw a name flash briefly before he locked it: Tasha, office. "Welcome," Rachel said softly. There's food in the kitchen, I can warm it. I'm not hungry, he muttered. She sat on the other side of the bed. Did something happen? He looked up slowly. His eyes were red, not from tears, but from too much thinking. Tell me the truth, he said. Since we married, have you ever gone somewhere you didn't tell me about? Rachel frowned, confused. What kind of place? Any place, he snapped. Native doctor, prophet, prayer house, anywhere they can use your name, anywhere they can collect your hair or wrapper. No, she said at once, shocked. Why would I go there? You know me, I pray at home, I go to church, that's all. He stood up suddenly, packing. Then why is my life like this? Why is everything I touch failing? Why did I get that contract and then lose it? Why did the truck break down that day? Why did the bank reject my loan? His voice rose with each question. Do you think it is normal? Bad things happen, she said carefully. Sometimes God tests us, sometimes it's just life, but it doesn't mean. It doesn't mean what? He barked, spinning to face her. You think I'm a fool? You think I don't know what people are saying? They said some women eat their husband's destiny quietly. They smile, they cook, they pretend to pray, but in the spirit they are something else. Rachel's mouth fell open. Caleb, how can you even put me in that kind of talk, me, after everything we've been through together? He looked away, jaw tight. Maybe I've been blind, he murmured, but I'm waking up now. Who is putting these things in your head? She demanded, hurt, pushing her voice higher. Is it that woman, that Tasha? Is she the one telling you your wife is the reason for your problems? He exploded. Don't call her name with that mouth, he shouted. She's the only person trying to help me right now. She opened my eyes. She said if I don't cut off anything that is draining me, I will lose everything. Maybe she's right. Rachel felt like the ground under her had moved. So now I am anything, she whispered. I am only something you cut off. He didn't answer. He just walked out, leaving the door swinging open behind him. Days turned into weeks. Things got worse. Caleb began to avoid Rachel completely. He ate in silence if he ate at all. He slept on the edge of the bed or on the couch, claiming he was thinking. His phone was always in his hand, always buzzing quietly. Sometimes, in the middle of the night, she would hear him speaking in a low voice on the balcony, words carried away by the dark. Nothing will change until you remove the problem, she heard once, a female voice on speaker before he quickly switched it off. In the compound, people's looks changed. Some still greeted her warmly. Others greeted, but their eyes slid over her too quickly, like they were afraid to linger. Children repeated things they heard their parents say at night. Once, as Daniel ran past two older boys downstairs, one of them muttered, "See, that's the woman's son." "What woman?" the other asked. "You know now, the one that spoilt her husband's business. My mother said people should be careful with her." That night, Daniel crawled into his mother's lap. "Mom," he asked, "what does it mean to spoil someone's business? Did you spoil Daddy's work?" Rachel's heart cracked a little more. She hugged him tightly, kissing his forehead. "No, my love," she whispered. "I would never do anything to hurt your dad or you. People talk when they don't understand. Don't let it enter your heart, okay?" "But why does Daddy shout now?" Daniel asked, voice small. "He didn't used to. He shouted today when you dropped the plate. He shouted yesterday when the light went off." Rachel swallowed hard. "Daddy is going through many things," she said. "Sometimes grown-ups forget how to talk gently when life is pressing them, but that doesn't mean it's your fault or mine." She said the words, but even as they left her mouth, doubt crawled through her like ants. If it wasn't her, then why did everything point back at her in his mind? What had changed? The night before everything exploded. The air in Enugu was heavy and hot. Even the wind felt tired. NEPA had taken light early and the compound glowed faintly under small rechargeable lamps and phone screens. Somewhere a radio played a slow worship song. Rachel sat at her sewing machine stitching a school uniform for a neighbor's daughter. Sweat trickled down her back, but she ignored it. She liked the sound of the needle moving up and down. It was steady, predictable, unlike her home now. Daniel lay on the floor nearby, drawing on an old exercise book. "Mom," he said suddenly, "if someone prays for you, can bad things still happen?" "Yes," she replied, pausing mid-stitch. "Sometimes they can, but God still sees you." So, if bad things happen, does it mean the person praying is bad? He asked. She looked at him then, really looked. Who told you that? He shrugged, eyes dropping to his drawing. I just heard something. Rachel's throat tightened. She reached for his hand. Listen to me, she said gently. Praying doesn't make you bad or good, your heart does. Some very wicked people don't pray at all. Some pray and still do wrong things, but God knows who is trying, okay? He nodded slowly, comforted a little. Okay. The door swung open. Caleb stepped in. His shirt was half-buttoned, eyes sharp but distant, like someone who'd been drinking trouble all evening. Rachel smelled perfume that wasn't hers, a stronger, sweeter scent, the kind that hung in the air even after the person left. Welcome, she said, forcing calm. Do you want to eat? I kept your food. He didn't answer. He dropped his keys on the table with a sharp clink. Pack your things, he said. Rachel blinked. What? I said pack your things, he repeated, voice low but deadly. Tonight you leave this house. Daniel sat up straight. Dad. Go inside, Caleb snapped without looking at him. Now. Caleb, what are you saying? Rachel asked, rising slowly. Leave to where at this time? To anywhere, he said, just not here, not in my house. Your house, she echoed, hurt flashing across her face. We built this life together, we suffered together, how can you talk like? He slammed his palm on the table. Don't try to twist my words, he shouted. Do you think I don't know what you are? Do you think I haven't seen the signs? Since I married you, nothing good has stayed in my hand. Every time something big comes close, it slips away. You think it's normal. Tears pricked her eyes, but she held them back. So everything bad that happened in your life is my fault, she asked quietly. Every loss, every delay, all me. Yes, he roared. You are the common factor in all my failure. I didn't see it before, but someone opened my eyes. She told me to look back and count. She was right. Before you, I was moving forward. Since you came, it has been 1 step forward, 10 steps back. So now you listen to she, Rachel said, voice shaking. This mysterious person who knows our marriage better than we do, the same one who meets you at night, who calls you and tells you your wife is the enemy. He laughed, a bitter, ugly sound. You're jealous, he said. That's how you women are. When someone who truly cares about your husband comes to help him, you start shouting she. Are you angry that she sees what I refuse to see, that she told me some wives are wombs of darkness, swallowing everything their husbands work for? The words hit Rachel like stones. I am not darkness, she whispered. Whatever is happening to you, I didn't cause it. I have carried this house on my back. I have prayed for you in the night when you were asleep. I have fasted. I have... Stop pretending, he cut in coldly. If you were truly good, my life would not look like this. Pack your things. Silence fell heavy in the room, the kind that presses against your ears. Outside, the compound was starting to quiet as people finished their baths and prepared to sleep. Rachel straightened her shoulders. Her voice when she spoke next was soft but steady. If you want me to leave, say it like a man, she said. Don't hide behind some woman's words. Don't hide behind stories. Look at me, Caleb. Look into my eyes and tell me you believe I am a witch. Tell me you believe I want to see you fail. He met her eyes. For a brief second, something flickered there. Doubt, memory, the echo of the man she married, but then it vanished, swallowed by pride and fear. I don't care what you call it, he said. All I know is, since you came into my life, pain followed. If cutting you off will give me peace, then so be it. Daniel started to cry. Dad, please, he said, scrambling to his feet. Don't send Mom away, please. I'll be good. I'll stop playing outside so much. This is not about you, Caleb snapped, though his eyes did not soften. Go to your room now. Let him stay, Rachel said quickly. If you want to throw me out, let our son see the kind of man his father has become. Something snapped in Caleb then, his face twisted. He strode across the room in 2 steps and grabbed her arm, fingers digging into her skin. You will not turn my child against me, he snarled. You will not stand here and pretend to be the saint while I am the devil, not in my own house. Daddy, stop, Daniel screamed, rushing forward. You're hurting her. Caleb pushed him aside with his free hand. The boy fell to the floor, sobbing. Leave him, Rachel cried, twisting her arm, trying to move between them. He's a child. Caleb's chest heaved. His eyes were almost empty now, filled with something Rachel could not recognize. It was deeper than anger, it was fear turned outward, and someone had fed it. He yanked her toward the door. "Where are you taking her?" a neighbor called from the corridor, peeping through a half-open door. "Stay out of this," Caleb shouted without turning. "This is my family, I'll handle it." He dragged Rachel into the corridor. Her bare feet slapped the cold floor. Her wrapper slipped, but she grabbed it with her free hand, cheeks burning with shame. The small rechargeable lamp in their living room cast a weak light behind them, stretching their shadows long across the wall. Other doors opened, faces appeared. Some hands clutched Bobby's, some arms were folded, watching. "Caleb, take it easy," an older man from the next flat said, stepping out a little. "Talk, don't fight, whatever it is you can settle." "Uncle, please," Caleb said, voice shaking with a strange mix of respect and madness. "Respect yourself, I don't interfere in your home, don't interfere in mine." The man stopped, his face fell, he stepped back into his doorway slowly. "Caleb, where are we going?" Rachel gasped, trying to keep up as he pulled her toward the staircase. "To end this," he muttered, "tonight, no more pretending." Her heart pounded. The stairwell was dim, lit only by a small bulb that flickered now and then. The concrete steps felt hard under her feet. The higher they climbed, the narrower the air felt, like the walls were closing in. "Please," she whispered, glancing back down at Daniel, who had run to the bottom of the stairs, tears streaming down his face. "Please, think of your son. If you send me away at night, where will I go? Who will cook for him? Who will help with his homework? Who will?" "Maybe then he will be free," Caleb said hoarsely, "free from your shadow." Her knees almost buckled. This was not her husband speaking, not the man who used to carry their sleeping son from the couch to the bed, whispering, "My little champion." On the third-floor landing, the air was cooler. The corridor there was mostly empty, only a few flats, some unoccupied. The wind from the open balcony at the end of the walkway smelled faintly of rain and distant smoke. Caleb dragged her toward that opening. The balcony rail stood there, a simple metal bar that had never scared Rachel before. Tonight, it looked like a thin line between life and something she didn't want to think about. "Caleb, stop," she said, breath coming fast. "You're scaring me." "Good," he said, "maybe fear will make you speak truth." He spun her around so her back was to the open air, her hands gripping the cold rail automatically. From here, she could see the whole compound below, tiny lights in windows, the small kiosk by the gate, a little figure, Daniel, standing downstairs, his face turned up toward her. "Look down," Caleb said, voice low. "Look at the life you have been sitting on, look at the years I lost." "Please," she begged, tears finally spilling over. "If you believe even a little that I once loved you, don't do this. I am not your enemy. Whatever these people told you, they are wrong. I am just a woman trying to keep her family together." "Lies," he whispered, "all lies." His hand moved from her arm to her throat, not fully choking but enough to make her swallow carefully. His legs shifted, pressing into her stomach. The metal rail pressed into her lower back. The night seemed to lean in, watching. Down below, more people had gathered now. Some shouted up weakly, "Caleb, leave her. Talk like adults. Don't do something you can't undo." But their voices floated up thin, like smoke that couldn't reach. In that moment, standing with her heels almost touching the edge, Rachel realized something cold and clear. Words would not reach him anymore. The husband she knew was buried under fear, pride, and poison someone else had poured into him drop by drop. She thought of Daniel, of his soft hair, his crooked front tooth, the way he laughed when she tickled his sides. She thought of the tiny scar on his knee from the day he fell chasing a kite. She thought of the promises she whispered over him at night, asking God to keep him safe. "God," she prayed silently, heart racing, "if this is my last night, don't let it be the end of my child's hope." The wind rose slightly, lifting the edge of her wrapper. A dog barked somewhere outside the compound wall. Someone downstairs began to cry. "Confess," Caleb said suddenly, eyes burning into hers. "Say what you are, say what you did. Admit you tied my destiny. Admit you ate my success. Admit you used my name for evil. Say it and maybe I will let you go." Rachel stared at him, chest heaving. "I will not confess to a lie," she said, voice trembling but firm. "I am not a witch, I did not destroy you, I stood by you. If you choose to throw me away, you are not breaking a curse, you are breaking your own home." For a second, the whole compound seemed to hold its breath. And then his face hardened completely. "So be it," he whispered. His foot shifted, the rail shook. Rachel's heels slipped on the edge of the tile, her body tilted backward, arms flailing to grab something that wasn't there, her mouth opened in a silent scream. Down below, Daniel's voice finally broke through the heavy air. "Moo-hum." The world tipped, night rushed up to meet her. And that is where we will pause this chapter. What happens when a woman pushed to the edge refuses to confess to a lie? How does a fall from a 3-story building become the very story that will shame the man who tried to erase her? The fall felt endless. For Rachel, time broke apart into pieces, the rush of air in her ears, the flash of orange light from a neighbor's lantern, the scream that was hers but sounded like someone else. Then, darkness folded over everything. The world stopped. When she opened her eyes, she thought she was dead. The air smelled of palm oil and herbs. A small kerosene lamp flickered beside her head, its weak glow painting the walls of a tiny room the color of rust. Something rough scratched her cheek. It took her a moment to realize she was lying on a raffia mat, not a hospital bed. Every breath hurt. Her left arm felt heavy, her ribs burned, and when she tried to move her legs, pain shot through her spine like fire. A woman's voice floated near the doorway. "Don't move, child, you're safe now." Rachel turned her head slightly. A tall woman stepped into view, wrapped in a faded wrapper, her gray hair tied back with a piece of cloth. Her eyes were calm but sharp, the kind that saw beyond excuses. Where am I?" Rachel whispered. Her throat was dry, even talking hurt. "In my compound," the woman said. "My name is Mama Nene. You fell from a building, people thought you died, but God still has work for you." Rachel blinked, confusion and pain wrestling inside her. "How did I?" "One boy found you breathing," Mama Nene continued. "He ran to call me. I know small things about bones and wounds, so I brought you here before the police or that madman could find you again." Madman Caleb, the word stung like salt on an open wound. "Your back is hurt, but you'll live," the old woman said, kneeling beside her. "God carried you in his palm. From that height you should not be speaking to me now." Rachel tried to sit up, but pain stabbed her ribs. She gasped, falling back. "My son," she whispered. "Daniel, where is he? Please tell me he's safe." Mama Nene looked away for a moment. "The neighbors took the child to your sister's house in Abakpa. They think you're gone. For now, let them think so. It's safer." Tears welled in Rachel's eyes. He must be so scared. "He'll be fine," the woman assured her softly. "But you must rest. You're in hiding, do you understand? That man is still out there, and people in your compound said he was shouting like someone possessed after the fall. Let God fight for you first. Your battle will come later." Rachel closed her eyes. The words sank deep, heavy, and strange. For the next few days, she drifted between sleep and pain. She heard distant church bells, the hum of insects, the rhythmic pounding of a pestle somewhere outside. Sometimes she saw Mama Nene's face hovering above her, pressing a damp cloth to her forehead or spooning bitter herbs into her mouth. Sometimes she dreamed of Daniel's laughter, of Caleb's eyes, of air rushing past her ears. When she finally woke one morning without crying out from pain, she realized 2 weeks had passed. She could move her fingers and toes again. The bruises on her face had darkened, then faded into a dull yellow. Her ribs still hurt, but less. Mama Nene smiled when she saw her sitting up. "Aheh, the lioness is rising." Rachel managed a small smile. "You should have let me die that night." The old woman frowned. "Don't ever say that again. If you died, your son's story would end too. A mother's breath is a child's covering." Rachel looked down at her hands. "But how do I face him? How do I live when the man I loved tried to kill me?" Mama Nene sat beside her on the mat. "You don't face him yet, you heal first. When a wound closes, it doesn't mean the battle didn't happen. It means you survived it, and surviving is sometimes the loudest revenge." Those words stayed with Rachel like a prayer. Over the next month, she helped with chores when she could, peeling cassava, washing small bowls, sweeping the yard slowly while the sun warmed her back. Her body mended, but her heart was still torn. She thought of Daniel constantly. Every night before sleeping, she whispered his name into the darkness. Meanwhile, in the Enugu compound, whispers turned into storms. After Rachel's fall, neighbors rushed upstairs, expecting to find blood on the tiles or a body broken below. Instead, they found only shattered pieces of a flower pot and an empty balcony. No one saw where she landed. No one knew who carried her away. For hours, the compound buzzed like a beehive. Caleb stood there frozen. His shirt was torn at the collar, his hands trembling. "She jumped," he said over and over. "She jumped herself." But people didn't believe him. They saw the marks on her arm earlier that evening. They remembered the shouting. They remembered the fear in Rachel's voice. "Where is she?" a man demanded. "Did you kill your wife?" Caleb's eyes darted left and right. "I didn't touch her. She was the one. She brought this on herself." By the time the police arrived, he had locked himself in his flat. The officers knocked, questioned him briefly, then left with stern warnings. They found no body, no evidence. Without proof, they could do little. But the community did not forget. The landlord asked him to vacate the flat. "Your presence brings trouble," the man said coldly. "People are afraid." Caleb moved out 2 weeks later, carrying boxes into a borrowed truck, avoiding everyone's eyes. Tasha came once to help but left quickly when she saw the stares from neighbors. The woman who had whispered poison into his ear was now afraid of being linked to a scandal. Caleb rented a smaller apartment near Cole Camp. Business calls stopped. Clients refused to answer. One after another, contracts disappeared. Even the boys who used to work for him found other jobs. His phone that once rang every hour now lay silent for days. At night, he sat alone, staring at the wall. The silence was unbearable. Sometimes he thought he heard Rachel's voice in the wind outside his window. Sometimes he dreamed of her falling, and each time he reached out too late. One morning, he went to his shop and found the lock broken. Most of his remaining materials, bags of cement, iron rods, were gone. No one saw anything. The landlord told him quietly, "You should be thankful. Maybe it's God balancing accounts." Caleb's pride cracked that day. He began drinking, something he had sworn never to do. At first, a bottle or two in the evening. Then, entire nights lost in haze. He stopped shaving. His clothes grew wrinkled. The once confident man became a shadow wandering the streets, muttering to himself. But guilt has a strange way of surviving even in shame. It doesn't die, it waits. Months passed. In a quiet corner of Nene's compound, Rachel started walking properly again. She fetched water, helped grind peppers, and sometimes sat outside watching the sunset stain the sky red and gold. Each evening, Mama Nene would join her with a stool and a bowl of roasted corn. "Do you still think about him?" the old woman asked once. "Every day," Rachel admitted, "but not the same way. Before, I missed him because I loved him. Now I miss the person I thought he was." Mama Nene nodded slowly. "That is healing. When love stops bleeding, wisdom begins to grow." Rachel looked away, blinking back tears. "I want to see my son. It's been too long." "Soon," the woman promised. "But not yet. The storm must finish beating before you step out again." It was another 2 months before Rachel dared to leave the compound. One early morning, she tied a scarf around her head, put on a long dress, and walked with Nene to the park. They boarded a bus to Abakpa. The ride was bumpy, filled with the smell of fuel and roasted groundnuts. When they arrived at her sister's small house, Rachel's hands were shaking. Her sister, Lydia, stood at the doorway, eyes wide, mouth open. "Rachel," she gasped, "they said you were gone. Oh my God, they said you died." Before Rachel could speak, Lydia wrapped her in a tight hug. Tears spilled freely. Behind her, Daniel appeared, clutching a small toy car. He froze when he saw his mother, disbelief and joy fighting across his little face. "Mom," he whispered. Rachel knelt down, ignoring the pain in her back. "It's me, baby." He ran into her arms, sobbing. "They said you went to heaven. I prayed every night for God to bring you back." Rachel held him close, her tears soaking his hair. "He heard you," she whispered. "He heard you." That reunion gave her new strength. She spent the next days with Lydia, helping in the small tailoring shop, playing with Daniel, and pretending the world outside didn't exist. But deep inside, she knew it wasn't over. Caleb was still out there, free, and the truth had not been spoken. Meanwhile, in coal camp, Caleb hit rock bottom. He had sold his last motorcycle to pay rent. His health was fading, his eyes were dull, his stomach constantly in knots. One night, while staggering home from a bar, he slipped in the mud and fell face first into a gutter. Nobody helped him up. The next morning, he looked at himself in a mirror and barely recognized the man staring back. "This is all her fault," he murmured, but even as he said it, the words sounded hollow. That night, he dreamt again. In the dream, Rachel was standing on the same balcony, her white wrapper glowing like moonlight. She didn't speak, she just looked at him, sad, calm, unblinking. When he woke, sweat drenched his shirt. He couldn't shake the image. Days later, he visited a small church near the market. The pastor, a short man with kind eyes, asked what troubled him. Caleb didn't tell the full story, he only said, "I hurt someone who trusted me." The pastor studied him quietly, then said, "If you truly hurt her, go and ask forgiveness. That's the only medicine." Caleb left without replying, but the seed was planted. 2 weeks later, he decided to look for Rachel's family. He went back to the old compound in Enugu, hoping someone would talk. Most neighbors ignored him. Some slammed doors. One old woman shook her head. "You're still alive, better go and confess before your shadow starts screaming your name." Finally, a young man pointed him toward Lydia's area. "Her sister lives there, people say the boy stays with her now." Caleb took a bike and rode there. When he arrived at the dusty street, he saw Lydia sweeping in front of her shop. She looked up, her broom freezing midair. "You have guts," she said coldly, "coming here after what you did." "I need to see my son," Caleb said, voice low, "and her if she's alive." Lydia's eyes narrowed. "Alive? You mean you do know? You threw her down like trash and you want to know if she lived? Go ask the ground you wanted her buried in." "I didn't mean for it to happen," he whispered. "I lost control, I thought." "You thought she was your curse," Lydia spat. "But look at you now, cursed by your own hands. She doesn't need to lift a finger. God is doing the work himself." Caleb's shoulders slumped. "Please, I just want to see her." Lydia hesitated. For a long moment she said nothing, then she sighed. "She's not here today, maybe tomorrow if she agrees." That night, Rachel returned from the market and found Lydia waiting at the table. "He came," Lydia said quietly. Rachel froze. "Who?" "Caleb, the man who broke you. He came here looking like a ghost, said he wants to talk." The room spun for a second. Rachel gripped the chair to steady herself. "What did you tell him?" "That you're not home. I wanted you to decide." Rachel sat slowly. "I don't know if I can face him." Lydia touched her hand. "You don't have to, he already lives with his punishment, but if you want peace, maybe hearing you forgive him will free your own heart." Rachel looked at the wall where Daniel's drawings hung, crude shapes of a smiling sun and stick figures holding hands. One drawing showed 3 people, a man, a woman, and a child, all standing together. She stared at it for a long time. "Tell him to come tomorrow," she said finally. When Caleb arrived the next afternoon, he wore a clean shirt, but his eyes carried months of regret. Rachel waited in the yard, sitting on a bench under the mango tree. The air was thick with the smell of rain. He stopped a few feet away, words caught in his throat. "You're alive." "I am," she said softly. Silence stretched between them. Birds chirped somewhere in the distance. "I don't expect you to forgive me," he began, voice trembling. "I don't even expect you to look at me. That night I lost everything. I let anger blind me. I listened to lies. I don't sleep anymore without seeing you fall." Rachel's face stayed calm, but her fingers twisted the edge of her wrapper. "You almost killed me, Caleb. You called me a witch. You made our son think I was gone forever. What do you want me to say now?" He swallowed hard. "I want to say sorry, truly sorry. I know it's too late, but I needed to say it. Everything I built collapsed after that night. It's like the ground itself rejected me. Maybe that's what I deserved." Rachel looked at him for a long moment. He looked smaller than she remembered. The proud man who once filled a room now looked like someone afraid of his own shadow. "Sorry doesn't rebuild bones," she said quietly. "Sorry doesn't erase nightmares, but it's a start." He nodded, tears brimming in his eyes. "Can I see Daniel?" "He's at school," she replied. "When he's ready, I'll let him decide if he wants to see you." He nodded again, unable to speak. Rachel stood slowly. "I don't hate you, Caleb," she said. "Hating you would mean I'm still chained to what you did. I've learned that forgiveness isn't for the person who hurt you, it's for the one trying to live again. I forgive you, but I will never go back." Caleb covered his face with his hands and began to cry, quiet, broken sobs that sounded like years of pain collapsing. When he finally looked up, she was already walking away toward the house. Her step slow but firm. That night, Caleb returned to his empty apartment. For the first time in months, he knelt beside his bed and prayed, not for money, not for success, just for peace. But fate wasn't done yet. The next week, a journalist from a local radio station visited Lydia's shop. He had heard rumors of a woman who survived being thrown from a building and lived to forgive her attacker. He wanted to tell her story anonymously if she wished to raise awareness about domestic abuse. Rachel hesitated, afraid of the spotlight, but Mama Nene, who had come to visit, placed a firm hand on her shoulder. "Your survival is not just yours," the old woman said. "It's a lantern, let others see by it." So Rachel agreed. She spoke softly during the interview, never mentioning Caleb's name but describing her journey from fear to freedom, from pain to purpose. She ended with words that would echo far beyond Enugu. "Forgiveness is not weakness, it is strength that stops the chain of pain from passing to the next generation." The interview went viral within a week. People shared clips across town. Churches quoted her lines. NGOs reached out, offering support for other women in similar situations. And though she never said his name, everyone in the compound knew who she was talking about. Caleb heard it too. He was sitting in a barber shop when the radio played her voice. The barber turned up the volume, saying, "This woman speaks sense. Imagine surviving that kind of evil." Caleb's hands trembled. He couldn't breathe. Every word felt like a mirror held before him. He left the shop without finishing his haircut and walked aimlessly through the rain until night fell. Back in his room, he opened his Bible for the first time in years. The verse his eyes landed on said, "Be sure your sin will find you out." He closed the book and cried until his body shook. From that day, he stopped drinking. He started volunteering at a local shelter that helped abused women rebuild their lives. He didn't tell anyone his story, he just cleaned, carried bags, fixed broken chairs. Sometimes, when no one was looking, he whispered a prayer for Rachel. Meanwhile, Rachel's life slowly blossomed. With help from Lydia and Mama Nene, she opened a small tailoring shop near the main road. Customers liked her calm spirit and neat work. She named the shop Second Chance Stitches. Her signboard read, "Mended clothes, mended hearts." Daniel grew fast, bright, and thoughtful. He sometimes asked about his father, and Rachel told him the truth, but gently, without anger. "Your dad made a mistake that hurt us both," she said once, kneeling to meet his eyes. "But we can choose to heal instead of hate." He nodded slowly, then hugged her. "You're strong, Mom." She smiled through tears. "Because of you." One evening, almost a year after the fall, Rachel stood outside her shop watching the sunset. The sky burned gold and red over the roofs of Enugu. One evening, almost a year after the fall, Rachel stood outside her shop watching the sunset spill gold and orange over the roofs of Enugu. The words "Second Chance Stitches" on her small signboard caught the last light of the day. She wiped her hands on her skirt and sighed, feeling that strange mix of tiredness and quiet joy that had become familiar. Across the road, a woman was buying vegetables from a street seller while her husband paced behind her, his shoulders tense, his voice sharp. The man snatched the bag of tomatoes from her hand, hissed something into her ear, and squeezed her arm a little too hard. The woman flinched but forced a smile, glancing around to see who was watching. Rachel's chest tightened. It was a small moment on the outside, just a man irritated with his wife, but she had learned to see the shadows hidden in simple gestures. She stepped closer to her shop door, her fingers brushing the frame, fighting the old fear that still lived somewhere deep in her bones. Once she would have looked away, telling herself it wasn't her business. Now her story wouldn't let her. The woman's eyes met hers for a brief second across the road. In that fleeting look, Rachel saw something she recognized too well: tiredness, confusion, and a quiet, buried plea. "Is this normal, or am I going crazy?" Rachel moved before she could overthink it. She walked across the street, careful and calm, like someone going to check a simple price. "Good evening," she said softly, smiling at the woman first, then at the man. "Please, I hope you don't mind. I just wanted to ask, do you both live around here? I'm trying to share some flyers for something we're starting over at my shop." She held up simple papers she had printed that week, almost shaking inside but forcing her hand to stay steady. At the top of the page, in clear black letters, it read, "Healing Circle, a safe place for women to talk." The man frowned. "Flyers for what?" he asked, his tone defensive but curious. "It's just a small meeting," Rachel replied gently. "For women who feel tired, overwhelmed, or hurt and need someone to listen. We also talk about how to build better homes and peaceful families. Sometimes we invite men too when they want to understand how to love better, not break what they love." She kept her voice soft, never accusing. The man shifted his weight, thrown off by her calm. He glanced at his wife, who quickly looked down. "We're fine," he said shortly. "No problem in our home." "I'm happy to hear that," Rachel answered, dipping her head slightly. "Still, you can keep this or give it to someone who might need it." She handed the flyer to the woman, their fingers touching for a brief second. In that touch, the woman squeezed back just once, quickly, like someone sending a silent message. "Thank you for seeing me." As Rachel walked back to her shop, she knew this was why she survived. Not just for herself, not just for Daniel, but for women whose names she might never know, whose husbands would never push them off balconies but would slowly erase them with words and fear until they were only shadows in their own homes. The healing circle started small. On the first day, only 3 women came: Lydia, one quiet neighbor who always wore long sleeves even in heat, and the vegetable seller from the compound near the bus stop. They sat on plastic chairs in the corner of Rachel's shop, surrounded by fabrics and thread. The single standing fan hummed in the background. For a while, nobody knew how to begin. They talked about school fees, about the price of rice, about how NEPA never brought light when you needed to iron. Then the neighbor with the long sleeves spoke, voice trembling. "My husband says he's the only one who can love me," she whispered. "He says nobody else will ever want me, so I should be happy he even stays. Is that love?" Rachel listened, her own heart echoing with old memories. She didn't rush to answer. "Love does not need to break you before it proves itself," she said softly. "If you have to be afraid in your own house, what you're living with is not love, it's control." The vegetable seller wiped her eyes with the edge of her wrapper. "Sometimes I think it's small," she confessed. "He doesn't beat me, he just shouts, calls me names, but when I'm cooking, my hands shake, I don't know why." "Because your spirit is tired," Rachel said gently. "Shouting can leave scars you don't see on the skin, those ones can even be harder to heal." Word spread slowly. By the 3rd week, 7 women came, then 12, some brought friends, some came hiding behind big scarves, not ready to be seen yet. They didn't just talk about pain, they talked about dreams too. Business ideas, ways to save a little money, how to teach their daughters what love should look like. Rachel shared parts of her story piece by piece, never using Caleb's name but never hiding the truth of what had happened. Each time she spoke, a little more shame fell away. Her survival had become a tool, not a secret. One day after a meeting, a well-dressed woman with glasses approached her. She introduced herself as Anita, a worker with a local nonprofit that partnered with churches and community groups. She had been invited by one of the women to observe. "I've seen many support groups," Anita said, smiling warmly. "But yours is something different. You don't just talk about pain, you talk about responsibility and healing. Have you ever thought about sharing your story on a bigger stage?" Rachel laughed nervously. "This is already bigger than I planned. I just wanted a place for women to breathe." Anita nodded. "I understand, but there's going to be a citywide event next month at the community hall. It's called Voices That Refuse to Be Silent. We invite survivors to speak and also people who used to be abusers but changed. We want people to see both sides, the hurt and the change. I think your voice would touch many hearts." The phrase "people who used to be abusers" made something shift in Rachel's chest. It sounded strange. The idea that someone who had hurt others could truly change felt heavy and complicated. Still, she knew in her bones that silence never protected anyone. It only covered wounds that needed air to heal. She agreed to think about it. That night she sat with Lydia and told her everything. Lydia was already cutting fabric, her scissors moving in clean lines. "What are you afraid of?" Lydia asked. "I'm not afraid of telling my story," Rachel said slowly. "I'm afraid of what it will bring up again. The memories, the anger, the faces who knew what happened but pretended not to see." Lydia put down the scissors and looked at her. "You walked away from a man who tried to erase you," she said. "You learned to walk again after you hit the ground. You opened a shop when everyone said you'd never stand straight, and you're afraid of a microphone." Rachel laughed weakly. When you put it like that. Listen to me. Lydia continued, you always say you survived for a reason. Maybe this is it. Maybe this is where your pain breaks someone else's chains. The next day, Rachel called Anita and said yes. What she did not know was that in another part of the city, someone else had been asked to speak at the same event. At a small shelter on the edge of town, Caleb wiped sweat from his forehead as he stacked donated mattresses against a wall. His hair was neater now, his clothes simple but clean. Months of service had carved a different shape into his life. He had become the man who quietly fixed broken fans, who changed light bulbs, who carried heavy bags for women who flinched when doors slammed too loud. He never tried to preach to them. He just worked, his guilt like a silent friend at his side. The shelter's coordinator, a calm man named Joel, approached him with a folded flyer. You've been consistent here, Joel said. You come early, you stay late, you never ask for anything. Next month, we're part of a city event where people share their stories. The organizers want at least one man who can say, I was part of the problem and this is how I'm trying to change. I thought of you. Caleb's heart jumped into his throat. You want me to stand in public and say I hurt someone? He asked, voice tight. Joel met his eyes. You already live with that truth every day. The question is, will you let it just crush you, or will you let it become a warning that saves someone else's wife from standing where yours stood? Memories crashed through Caleb's mind, Rachel's back pressed against the balcony rail, her eyes wide, Daniel's scream rising from below, the emptiness that followed. I don't know if I'm strong enough, he whispered. It's not about strength, Joel said. It's about honesty. Shame grows in the dark. Sometimes bringing it into the light is what finally breaks it. The phrase breaks it stuck to Caleb's ribs. For so long he had been the one breaking things, trust, peace, bones, hearts. The idea that his own shame could be the thing that broke his pride, his old self, felt like both punishment and mercy. After a long, shaking breath, he nodded. I'll do it, he said. The day of the event came faster than anyone expected. The community hall buzzed with voices. Chairs were arranged in neat rows, banners hung from the walls with phrases like love should not hurt and silence protects no one. A small stage stood at the front with 2 microphones waiting. Rachel stood backstage, her palms sweaty, the sound of murmuring voices washing over her. Daniel sat in the front row next to Lydia, his eyes bright. He had begged to come. I want to hear you talk, Mom, he said. You always tell me words can build or kill. I want to see you build. She had looked at him, surprised at how grown he sounded. You're sure you're ready to hear everything? She asked. He shrugged gently. I already know the worst part. It happened to you, but I want to see how it didn't end you. Those words stayed in her chest like a small flame. Anita came over and touched her elbow. You'll speak second, she said. We have a short drama first, then a man will share his journey, then you. The order is meant to show people both sides. Rachel nodded, grateful she would not be the first to face the crowd. She peeped through the curtain and saw the back of a man sitting near the other side of the stage, head bowed. Something about the slope of his shoulders looked familiar, but she pushed the thought aside. The shelter worked with many men, she couldn't assume anything. The drama ended with loud clapping. The host of the event stepped up. Next, she said into the microphone, we have someone very special. We rarely hear from men who admit they were part of the problem, but today we have a man who has chosen to step into the light of truth. Please welcome Caleb. The name hit Rachel like a slap. Her heart stopped. For a moment she thought she had heard wrong, then she saw him stand up. The way he rose, the way he adjusted his shirt, the way he walked slower now but still him. The man who had once dragged her through a corridor and pushed her into the night. Her knees weakened, she gripped the nearest chair, her nails digging into the wood. Anita turned to her. Are you okay? Rachel could barely nod. That's him, she whispered. That's my husband. You can step out if you want, Anita said quickly. You don't have to do this, we didn't know. Rachel shook her head though her body trembled. No, I need to hear what he will say, and I need to say what I came here to say. On stage, Caleb stood in front of the microphone, the bright lights revealing lines on his face that guilt had carved. The hall grew quiet. He cleared his throat, the sound amplified through the speakers. For a long moment he said nothing. The silence pressed against his chest like a weight. My name is Caleb, he began finally, voice rough. Not a fake name, not a hidden face, just Caleb, and I am here because once a woman trusted me with her life and I used that trust to destroy her. A murmur moved through the crowd. He continued before it could swallow his courage. I wasn't always a monster, he said. If you had met me years ago, you might have liked me. I helped people, I worked hard, I had dreams. When things in my business started to fail, I looked for someone to blame. I found a woman who told me what I wanted to hear, that my wife was the problem, that my bad luck had a face. Instead of fighting my pride, I fed it with her lies. I let fear and anger grow in me until I became something worse than the things I feared. His eyes glistened under the lights. One night I dragged my wife to a balcony and pushed her over. I told myself she jumped. I told myself she deserved whatever happened. For a while I even told myself she died. I walked around with blood on my hands that I couldn't see, but God saw it. The ground rejected me, my business failed. The same lies that gave me courage to hurt her left me alone when everything crashed. I tried to drown the guilt in alcohol, work, and excuses. It never worked. People listened, some shaking their heads, some wiping tears. A man in the third row looked at his own hands like he was seeing them for the first time. A woman near the back pressed a tissue to her mouth, eyes wide. It's easy to say sorry when you've lost everything, Caleb said quietly. So I won't pretend that my apology is some big gift. It's the least thing I can bring to the woman I broke. I don't know why God kept her alive. I don't know why she forgave me when she had every right to curse my name. All I know is her survival is now a mirror I have to look into every day. It shows me the man I was and the man I refuse to be again. He paused, gripping the sides of the podium. His voice dropped even lower. If you are a man sitting here and you use your hands or your words to crush the person who loves you, know this: the shame you're building will not leave you alone. You may hide it for years, but one day, maybe in a hall like this, maybe in your child's eyes, it will stand up and call your name out loud. Don't wait until you're standing where I am, broken, watching the woman you nearly killed stand taller than you. He stepped back from the microphone. Thank you, he whispered, though he knew no thanks could wash away what he had done. He returned to his seat, not daring to look around. Backstage, Rachel's heart pounded so hard she thought the microphone might pick it up when she spoke. Caleb had not mentioned her name, but he had shown his face. He had owned his sin without hiding behind spirits or stories. She did not feel sorry for him, that would be too easy. What she felt was something stranger, a deep aching sadness for the man he could have been, and a quiet, fierce joy that she was no longer chained to that version of him. The host came back to the microphone. Thank you, Caleb, she said softly. Next, we have a woman whose courage has already started touching lives across our city. Some of you know her voice from the radio. Today you will see her face. Please welcome Rachel from Second Chance Stitches. Applause rose around the hall. Rachel took one more breath, stepped out, and walked onto the stage. The lights were bright, but she kept her eyes steady. She could feel Daniel's gaze from the front row like a warm hand on her back. She did not look toward where she knew Caleb sat. She reached the microphone and smiled faintly. Good evening, she began. My knees are shaking, but my story is stronger than my fear, so I'll keep talking. The audience laughed softly, easing the air. I won't repeat what you just heard, she said. You already know what he did. I'm here to tell you what happened after the fall. She let the words hang for a moment, then continued. When I woke up in a stranger's small room with herbs on my tongue and fire in my bones, I thought God had made a mistake keeping me alive. My back hurt, my body was broken, my child thought I was gone. There was nothing left in my marriage to go back to, and nothing ahead of me that I could see clearly. In that dark place, I learned something nobody teaches young girls clearly enough. Surviving is also a kind of calling. She told them about Mama Nene, the old woman who hid her when everyone believed she had died. She described the slow process of learning to sit, then stand, then walk without crying. She spoke about the first time she saw Daniel again, how his arms wrapped around her neck felt like God hugging her through a child. She explained how shame tried to sit on her chest like a heavy stone, whispering, "You must have done something to deserve this. You must be cursed, unlucky, foolish." I decided not to let that voice win, she said firmly. I realized that the only way my husband's voice would stop having power over me was if I refused to repeat his words in my own head. He called me a witch, but I know who I am. I am a woman, a mother, a child of God. I am not darkness. I am a bearer of light, even if that light sometimes flickers. She told them about starting the healing circle, about women who came in with eyes dim like dying coals and left with small sparks glowing. We don't just cry there, she said. We plan, we learn, we say out loud what we were told to keep quiet. And every time a woman tells the truth about what's happening in her home, another wall of fear falls down. Then she paused, her eyes sweeping the room. Some of you might be thinking, if she forgave him, does it mean every woman should go back to the man who hurt her? No, forgiveness is not a ticket back to danger. Forgiveness is a way of cleaning your own heart so poison doesn't live there rent-free. It does not erase consequences. It does not cancel justice. She took a breath. I forgave my husband because I refused to carry the weight of his sin on my own back, but I did not go back to him. My son and I are building a new life one stitch at a time. My body still aches when it rains. Sometimes my back reminds me of what happened. But instead of letting that pain tell me I am weak, I let it remind me that I am still here. Rachel finally let her gaze drift toward the side of the hall where Caleb sat. Their eyes met for the briefest moment. In his face she saw a river of regret. In hers he saw something stranger than anger, freedom. That was the shame that truly broke him. Not the insults of neighbors, not the emptiness of his flat, not even the loss of his business. It was the sight of the woman he tried to throw away standing taller than he had ever allowed her to stand in his house. Her survival had become the measuring stick for his fall. She turned back to the audience. To the women here, she said, if you hear this and your heart whispers, this sounds like me, please don't wait for a balcony to show you how close you are to the edge. Reach out now, to a friend, to a church that actually cares, to a group like this, to a shelter, to anyone safe. Your bruises are not proof that you're strong, you are strong even without them. She swallowed tears and continued, her voice steady but thick. To the men here, if you ever raised your hand, your voice, or your power in a way that made someone who loves you feel small, the story is not over yet. You can choose to be different, but don't just say sorry with your mouth. Say it with your next choice, your next action, your next year. The hall was so quiet you could hear a chair creak at the back. Rachel smiled softly. As for me, I will keep telling this story until even the walls of our homes learn that they were built to hold safety, not screams. I fell because someone believed a lie about me. I stand today because I finally believed the truth about myself. She stepped back from the microphone and the applause rose like a wave, loud and long. People stood, some wiped tears, some reached for their partner's hands. In the front row, Daniel clapped until his palms stung, pride shining in his eyes. Caleb didn't clap at first. His hands lay limp in his lap. He felt like every person in the hall could see straight through him. But slowly, almost painfully, he brought his palms together. The sound of his own clapping felt like nails in a coffin, the coffin of the man he used to be. As he watched Rachel walk off stage, he felt something inside him truly break for the first time, not his image, not his bank account, but his stubborn pride. He bowed his head and whispered, "Thank you for keeping her alive when I didn't deserve it." After the event, people queued to talk to Rachel, to hug her, to ask about the healing circle. Journalists requested short quotes. A church group asked if she could come speak to their youth. An NGO offered to help expand her sessions. The small story of a woman thrown from a 3-story building had grown into a movement that would outlive both her and the man who hurt her. Rachel slipped away from the crowd for a moment and stepped outside into the evening air. The sky over Enugu was deep blue with a thin line of orange still hugging the horizon. Footsteps approached behind her. She didn't turn. "Thank you," Caleb said quietly, standing a few feet away. "Not just for forgiving me, for turning what I did into something that might save other people." She kept her eyes on the sky. "You're not doing this for me," she said. "You're doing it for the man you hope to be one day. Keep walking in that direction. Don't use my forgiveness as an excuse to relax. Use it as a reason to stay awake." He nodded, tears he didn't bother hiding glistening on his cheeks. "I understand." She finally looked at him, not as a wife, not even as a victim, but as someone whose story had moved beyond his control. "I hope you find peace," she said. "Real peace, the kind that doesn't require someone else's pain to exist." Then she turned and walked back inside where Daniel was waiting, his small hand reaching for hers. She took it, feeling his fingers curl around hers like roots taking hold in new soil. That night, as she lay in bed, her back aching in the familiar way, Rachel didn't think about falling anymore. She thought about standing, about circles of women sitting in her shop, about young men who would think twice before letting anger rule them, about children who would grow up knowing that love and fear are not twins. Her survival story had not just broken Caleb's pride, it had broken a pattern that might have passed from father to son, husband to wife, house to house. And that, she realized, was the real miracle. If this story touched your heart, don't just close it and move on. Let it remind you that no one deserves to be broken in the name of love, and that healing is possible even after the worst fall. Tell me in the comments where you're watching from, your city, your country, your little corner of the world, so we know how far these stories are traveling. And please, don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who might need this reminder, and subscribe to this channel to support our growth, so we can keep bringing you more life-changing stories that heal, restore, and remind you of your worth.